Well, I've got a friend. I don't know how long she's going to sit here or not. There's actually not much new to report regarding my cancer, except that I threw up about half a dozen times yesterday, so I had to stay home from work. Thankfully, I felt better today. Jesus said many radical things that have caused no end of discussion for the last 2,000 years. Professional stuff going on here. Things like lose your life to save it. The first will be last. The meek will inherit the earth. Love your enemies. Rejoice in persecution. Turn your cheek. But of all the things Jesus ever said, the most outrageous, at least certainly in our day, is recorded in John 14:6. Jesus claimed, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Jesus is the only figure of the major world religions to ever make such a claim. Moses never made such a claim. Muhammad never made such a claim. Buddha never made such a claim. But Jesus not only made such a claim, the rest of the New Testament also reiterates his claim. For example, in one of the first sermons of church history, Peter proclaimed, "Salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved." Similarly, the Apostle Paul proclaimed in 1 Timothy 2:5, "For there is one God and one mediator between God and man, the man Jesus Christ." All the other religious leaders of the world religions said, in effect, "Follow me and I'll show you how to find the truth." But Jesus said, "I am the truth." All the other religious leaders of the world said, "Follow me and I'll show you how to become enlightened." But Jesus said, "I am the light of the world." Since the evidence is that Jesus was raised from the dead, it follows that he is who he claimed to be, the unique Son of God who is the only way to God. So question, why do people today so often violently react to the idea that Jesus is the only way to God? Well, I can think of at least 4 reasons. But before I talk about them, I need to point out that the problem is not with Jesus or his claim. The problem is us. Jesus is the truth. We are the victims of the cultural myths of our day. The first myth of our age is that there is no such thing as absolute truth. From roughly 1700 to 1960, the West was dominated by an Enlightenment worldview, or what later came to be called modernism. The basic creed of modernism was that science can explain reality, that everything can be verified by must be verified by science or reason. But in the last decade, the West has given up on modernism and become what the last couple of decades, actually since the 60s is when it started, but the West has given up on modernism and become what philosophers call a postmodern society. Postmodernism has given up on modernism's absolute confidence in science and reason. Postmodernism has given up on any search for absolute truth. The basic creed of postmodernism is that the only absolute truth is that there is no absolute truth. But isn't that claim considered an absolute truth? Postmodernists claim that there is one absolute truth, that is, that there is no truth out there. Never mind that that basic creed is self-contradictory, there is no need for logical consistency within postmodernism. Postmodernism denies that any truth can be objectively known. Postmodernism believes that it is pointless to argue whether opinion A or opinion B is superior. Truth is really nothing more than personal opinion. Postmodernism will eventually be replaced by some other worldview because postmodernism will not work. It is impossible to live life convinced that you can't be convinced of anything. To say that 2 and 2 is sometimes 4 and sometimes 5 and sometimes 6 and everybody must decide for themselves what is will ultimately leave society in chaos. If I use my system of math and the bank uses their system of math and the grocery store uses theirs, how is anyone ever going to balance their books? Now, I certainly agree that absolute certainty is hard to come by. In the end, perhaps math is the only thing that we can be absolutely certain about. But it is impossible to live life with no guidelines. If there is no consensus that lying is bad, then how in the world can we ever trust anyone? The truth is that most of us, whether we're flirting with or promoting postmodern ideas, live life on pretty much the same basis as our law courts. What standard do our law courts use? Do cases have to be proved beyond the shadow of a doubt? No, beyond reasonable doubt. And that's how we live life. We make decisions based on high probability. We make decisions based on what seems beyond reasonable doubt. When I go to the bank and I give the teller my paycheck, I have a reasonable probability that the teller is going to deposit it in my account. We have to live life assuming that some things are true or we will never be able to function. Postmodernism's denial of anything being ultimately true does not work. Everyone must assume some things as true to be able to live. So while our current cultural fad is to say that there is no ultimate truth, that is neither biblical, logical, or practical. If postmodernism's cultural relativism is true and every culture and every individual must determine for themselves what is true, then who can be arrogant enough to say that Hitler was wrong to kill 6 million Jews? Unless there is some absolute basis for saying that killing is wrong, how can anyone condemn the Holocaust? The great myth of postmodern America is that there is no true truth, and the longer we live by this creed, the more chaotic our society will become. We can defy gravity all we want, but the more buildings we jump off of, the more banged up we're going to get. But if we buy into our culture's postmodern worldview that there is no ultimate truth, then we will assume a second cultural myth. That is, that all religions have an equal claim on the truth. Religion is a matter of personal preference. Just go down the buffet line and pick what you like and make up your own meal. I think of the comment of the actress Sarah Michelle Gellar. I consider myself a spiritual person. I believe in an idea of God, although it's my own personal ideal. I find most religions interesting, and I've been to every kind of denomination, Catholic, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist. I've taken bits from everything and customized it. In other words, she has in effect created Sarahism, which is in effect what most people do today. Everyone seems to have their own custom-made faith. In effect, everyone has made themselves the final authority for what to believe. But if we are consistent in this approach, we would have to agree that there's no ultimate difference between our faith and the faith of Jim Jones or David Koresh or, again, Adolf Hitler. Are all religions really the same thing? God, according to the Christian faith, is the eternal creator of the universe who exists in three persons, Father, Son, and Spirit. According to Judaism and Islam, he does not exist in three persons. So which is it? God is three persons or not? He can't be both three persons and not three persons. According to Christianity, Jesus is the divine Son of God. He is God in the flesh, God the Son, but he is none of those things in Judaism or Islam. So how can Jesus be both God and not be God? If logic has any validity at all, and it does because God exists and he is logical, then it must be true that all religions, it cannot be true that all religions are the same. God is not schizophrenic. God does not contradict himself. God doesn't say he is one thing in one religion and something else in another religion. Every religious system is based on doing something for God. Every religious system involves somehow living in such a way as to please God. But Christianity is about God doing something for us. The world religions are about doing. Christianity is about done. Christianity is not about our doing something to earn God's favor. Christianity is about God's having done everything in his Son to freely give us his favor. Rather than working our way to God, Christianity is about God working his way to us. Jesus did everything necessary to bring God and man together on the cross. Remember Jesus' cry on the cross? It is finished. It is done. The distinction between Christianity and all other religious faiths is well illustrated by comparing two very similar stories as told by Jesus and Buddha. Both stories were about rebellious sons who ran away from home and then saw the error of their ways and went back to be reconciled with their families. But in Buddha's story, when the rebellious son returns, his father gives him a list of a whole bunch of things to do to pay for his past misdeeds. In Jesus' story, when the son returns home, his father lavishes upon him undeserved forgiveness. Buddhism is about doing to earn God's favor, or they would say to achieve enlightenment, Christianity is about what God has done to give us his favor. As R.C. Sproul says, Moses could meditate on the law, Mohammed could brandish a sword, Buddha could give personal counsel, Confucius could offer wise counsel, but none of these men were qualified to offer an atonement for the sins of the world. Only Jesus can do that. So all of this to illustrate that it is a myth to say that all religions are the same. There are some similarities in some of them, but Christianity is distinctly different from all of them. The first myth is that there is no such thing as truth. The second myth is that all religions have an equal claim on the truth. The third myth is that all religions are the same. The last myth is any claim that one way is right is intolerant. Now, if postmodernists are right and there are no ultimate truths and all religions are but personal preferences on how to get to God, then Jesus' claim to be the only way to God is incredibly intolerant. But what if postmodernism is wrong? What if there is such a thing as truth? And what if the truth is that Jesus is the only way to God? Would Christians then be intolerant and unloving if they insist on telling everyone the truth rather than what they want to hear? Wouldn't it be more unloving to fail to tell people the truth when their eternal destiny is at stake? The first clue that I had cancer is that I turned jaundice. My skin was turning yellow and the whites of my eyes appeared yellowish due to excessive bile in my blood. Jaundice can be easily treated, but it can be deadly if it is not treated correctly. So suppose you had a friend whose baby had jaundice and recommended the normal treatment of putting them under a special light for a while to stimulate their liver, but suppose your friend says, that sounds too easy. What if instead we scrub our baby with soap or dip her in bleach? There's got to be several ways to get rid of this jaundice. I'm sure if we just work hard enough, any of these methods will do to get rid of the jaundice. And would the doctor be intolerant or unloving if he kindly but firmly said, no, there's only one way to treat jaundice and you've got to do it like I told you? Such a doctor would not be narrow-minded. He would be acting rationally in accord with the evidence. And if Jesus is the only way to God, then it is not intolerant or unloving to proclaim the truth. Rather, it is horribly unloving to not tell the truth about Jesus. So here's the truth. The crucial question in life is, what are we doing with Jesus? The evidence confirms that he is who he claimed to be, the only way to God. The claims brought against his being the only way to God are themselves myths. So sitting on the fence regarding Jesus is not the way to live. The time has come for us to get off the fence and to trust in him. Our eternal destiny is at stake. Once again, I'd love to hear from you if you have any comments.